I'm so excited for my daddy's podcast, and it's going to start right now.
Welcome to Volume 2 of the Lessons for Success show, the podcast heard by nearly 3,000 students, teachers, coaches, and others across the world. I'm your host, Adam Wardlaw, a middle school science teacher and high school football coach in South Carolina, USA. The goal of each episode is to share the stories of various people and the life lessons they've learned along their journeys. Before we get started, be sure you're following the show on all of our social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and yes, even TikTok. Simply search L4S Show. Just remember, it's the number 4. Also, be sure to subscribe to the Lessons for Success Show YouTube channel, where all episodes are uploaded. If you're an educator, coach, or business leader, feel free to send the links to these episodes directly to your students or employees so they can benefit as well. Without further ado, let's start the show.
Daddy, who's the guest on your podcast this week?
This week's guest is Coach Evie Casagrande from Orlando Pride Soccer. In this episode, Coach Casagrande shares her personal journey growing up and how she made her way into the soccer profession. Her story is powerful for many reasons, and I'm pumped for y'all to hear her testimony. You can keep up with Coach on Twitter at Evie Casagrande. Enjoy!
All right. Thank you so much, Adam, for inviting me to be part of your amazing initiative and podcast. So my name is Evie Casagrande, and I'm a strength conditioning coach for the Orlando Pride, which is a professional team in the NWSL League here in Orlando. And then I started that job position in last year, April. So becoming my second season. Unfortunately, we had to suspend after our first preseason week after the coronavirus, but hopefully this will all end soon for everybody. Everybody's going to, go through this, and we'll go back to season. But I'm originally from Brazil. I grew up in Brazil, and I grew up playing soccer, actually, and I was the only girl in a lot of my young years playing soccer. I was playing soccer with boys because it was not really big in Brazil, and there's still a lot of prejudice back then with girls playing soccer. So grew up there, all my family is there, and then I grew up playing futsal, which is a small version of soccer, which is pretty much an indoor facility for V4 plus goalkeeper. So we're really where all us Brazilians really learn how to be really skilled with the ball. I think it comes from a lot of the futsal experience there. And then when I was about 14, 15 years old, I decided to go try out for a soccer tryouts for the national team. It was a under 17 tryout that was going on in my city, and my uncle said, "Oh, you should try it out." And I'm like, "Oh, I'd never really played soccer per se. I played futsal, which is completely different. Didn't even have cleats." So he's like, "Well, we'll go to the store, we'll buy you cleats, and we'll go there and just see how it is." So I went there. I was about 15 years old, and pretty scary time for me because there's about 200 girls, really good players that were used to playing soccer. And then I ended up actually making through the final 22 that was selected for the state team. And I was pre-selected for the U17 national team. So I was in between 9 players that was pre-selected for that, but only 3 of those was selected, actually went to camp and stuff. But for me, it was a really big accomplishment, and I decided to really invest in soccer. So I was lucky that my parents really helped me out with providing all the resources and everything for me to be able to play, and sports psychologist, because I was really not confident when I was young. I think because I was the only girl playing with boys almost all my life, until the 14, 15 years old. So I had all the good resources to get to where I wanted to be, and always wanted to go to the US because that's where I knew that I could study and also play at a competitive level, which in Brazil cannot really do that. You have to choose between being a professional soccer player and then that's it. And that at that young age, 15, I still wanted to go to college. I still wanted to learn and get a bachelor's degree, and because I knew that soccer was not forever, and I wanted to be a doctor at the time. So um, I pretty much got a scholarship to go to an American school in my hometown in Brazil, where I would actually be able to play and study everything in English. So learn the language, learn the culture, and being able to still have training in the facility in the school after hours. So that was nice because before I was in a professional team for about 2 years where I was in school until 12, and then I had to like get 3 different trains and 2 buses to get to train in the other side of the city, and spend the entire day there training, and then back home about 11 p.m. every day. And I was studying at one of the hardest schools during that time, and I just it got to a point that I could not handle that because I still wanted to get my degree, my high school degree, and but also be able to play soccer. So when that opportunity came from the American school, it was the perfect thing for me to still study and be prepared for the life in America and play. So I gathered a bunch of videos of me playing and a bunch of tournaments. I was working really hard to be prepared physically, mentally, to the demands of being a student athlete in America, and I had a really good guidance of people around me to really tell me what I really needed to be doing to be successful here. And I was fortunate enough that I got a scholarship, a full scholarship at the time for University of Tampa in Florida, but I think it was about 4 or 5 months before I was ready to go. They canceled the budget for the school that year, so they had to cancel that scholarship, and I was pretty upset, and I was really desperate because you know how early you have to be on that process of getting a scholarship in those colleges and universities. So um, kind of wasn't a little it's a little chaos for me trying to figure it out what I was going to do because all the schools kind of had already set the budget for the year. But I was able to have one coach coming to watch me play from University of Dayton, Mike Tucker at the time. And he watched me play, came to Brazil, and really liked my style of play. But he didn't have the budget to offer me a full scholarship, but he was the key point to help me and talk to other coaches. So um, I think at the time I got 5 full scholarships because of his help, because he was sending videos to all his colleagues and coaches in the area. So I chose Bowling Green State University, Ohio, which the middle of nowhere. But I was excited to kind of really dive into the culture, the American culture. I didn't want to go to a place where I would really see a lot of Brazilians and a lot of, I just wanted to be immersed, and I knew that was going to be hard, leaving all my family and being able to having to go by myself and leave everything behind and then just start a new life. But starting just talking about it now, like I would never choose another place back then because it really shaped who I am, and it was a really hard 4 years because I dealt with a bunch of different challenges all throughout. My first week, I they told me not to be around the team for 15 days because of the NCAA rule on eligibility for the grades I had in Brazil, because I think the NCAA didn't really understand the grade system in Brazil, so they thought I didn't have enough GPA to be playing. So we had to appeal, and during that week was just my first week by myself in American, and it was just really hard because I was stuck in my dorm room, and I didn't even have the money for my scholarship to get books or have access to my meal plans and stuff. So it was a little scary because they told me that I had to go back to Brazil if that wouldn't resolve. So, and I didn't want it at all to go back to Brazil because that was always been my dream. And but then everything worked out. After probably 20 days, they appealed, and they told me I was eligible to play. So had a really tough 4 years because we had 3 different coaches in 4 years. And then trying to figure out the style of play, which is really different from what I used to in Brazil. It's really physical, and there's a lot of more aggressive than Brazil. So my first 2 years in college, I spent kind of being in the weight room trying to get as much muscle mass as I could, and trying to be a more aggressive player, because that was really a shock for me. So I finished my bachelor's. I got my pre-med applied health science degree. So I was pretty much that athlete that I was all about just studying and playing soccer. I really didn't go out actually to enjoy college life until my senior year, when I was done with soccer, because I knew that I had to go through that in order to be successful, and I wanted to be a good student. I wanted to have a high GPA, and with English being my second language, not my first, I knew that I had to do way more than the usual, student athlete. And being in a pre-med, you could imagine that it's always way harder too, because of the difficulty of classes and stuff, and being able to all doing that at the same time. But it was amazing experience for me. I ended up having a bachelor's degree in applied health science pre-med, and done with soccer. After that, I decided to go to California. And then it was really random because I just wanted to kind of go away from Ohio a little bit and live the big city, and kind of figured out what I wanted to do with my life. I was trying to go to med school, was studying for the MCAT at the time. And I took the MCAT twice. I went to California with my 1997 Nissan Altima car with everything I had in my trunk, and just wanted to pretty much figure things out in California and make sure if that medical school is really for me, or I needed to have another closure from soccer, because I really didn't have a good experience athletically in my own goals and objectives as a player. So I was trying to get to Europe to play professionally. I got a sports agent, ended up spending a lot of my money that I didn't have on him. I sold my computer to pay for his fees on top of the Kaplan MCAT course that I was doing at the same time. And at the time, I was just by myself in California with little help from my family financially, just because they couldn't help. And then trying to find different jobs to pay for living there. I had a family that was nice enough to provide me housing for the first 6 months of my stay there. And then after that, I had to figure things out. So it was really hard to find a job, because as an international student, you're really limited on the jobs that you can have. So I couldn't be a waitress, for example, or because it was not legal for me with the student visa to do that. So it had to be something related to my field, which was pre-med applied health science. So you could imagine how hard it is, because in the medical field, you have to at least have the medical degree to work as a nurse or something like that. And at that point, I was just a pre-med. So really, really tough times. And I was, but again, I was always positive. I knew that experience was going to bring me something good, and it was going to make me grow. And then I finally got a medical scribe job. That was the only job that I could actually be exposed to the hospital setting, and being not hands-on, but at least being exposed to the medical field and understanding if that was actually what I wanted to do or not. So I had 5 different jobs at that time. I had 2 paid jobs, which was, yeah, I was a medical scribe, which was crazy to think now. When I think about back then, I'm like, oh my gosh, crazy. But I was a medical scribe, so it was a part-time job. And then I was just a coach, just coaching kids in parks, which was really hard because you couldn't really trust that income, because a lot of the times your athlete would get hurt or is young athlete, so there's not a lot of really consistency there. And the other 3 jobs was all volunteer. So I was volunteering at a cancer hospital in Los Angeles, City of Hope, one of the best cancer hospitals there. I was doing research there, doing research at University of Irvine, and then I was studying for the MCAT. I was doing the Kaplan course at the same time. I was just trying to figure things out, and I was coaching in a kids for like 4-year-olds. It's called Happy Feet, just kind of introducing soccer to young kids. So it was a really tough year, but at the same time, really made me realize what I really wanted to do. First of all, I lost a lot of money on that sports agent that pretty much ran away and didn't really find me a club, and I couldn't communicate with him after that. And then I realized that I could not afford medical school, because as an international student, you really don't have a lot of for example, scholarships or loans that you can have. It's really hard at that time. So I just made the decision to, and I was pretty fortunate that I had my sports psychologist in Bowling Green. She was the director of a graduate school in Bowling Green, the kinesiology department. So I reached out to her, and she's like, well, Evie, we have a master's of kinesiology, and you can be a graduate assistant at the same time. And for me, that was the perfect idea, because I still wanted to be more involved with the sports and be still involved with health. So kinesiology for me would be the best mix of both. And kind of coaching, being a graduate assistant, I was teaching courses at the bachelor's level for students, exercise science classes. And then I was also a graduate assistant for the team that I actually played for, Division I women's soccer team, Bowling Green, as a sports performance coach, which was something new that at the time, now it's becoming more and more common to have sports performance coaches. But at the time, I was one of the first ones there in the university that has a sports performance background. And it was a great 2 years of my master's. I learned a lot. I was able to learn the theory, but also apply. And I had good coaches in that program that allow me to try things on with the team and learn with my mistakes. At the time, I didn't have a lot of mentors locally that would guide me through things. So I was able to do some internships and apply for like really big dream internships that I always dreamed about, which was EXO's sports performance gym at the time, where it was really competitive to get in their internship program. But I did try my first year of my master's in the summer because I wanted to get more experience on it. And I ended up actually being accepted but it was in Los Angeles. So here I am back to try to go to California and try to pay for bills, which was really hard decision. But at the same time, I knew that I had to do something about it, because I knew that opportunity was going to open doors. So with the help of a family that I lived during my master's. They helped me out a little bit, and my parents helped me with what they could. And I was saving some pennies from my graduate assistantship. I was able to get a couch in California, Los Angeles for 4 months with my friends. And then, wake up at 4 a.m. to get 3 buses and get to Carson, to be able to do that internship, which I did it with a smile on my face every day because that was my dream. And I was able to coach a bunch of professional athletes, NFL players and Premier League players, and all those players that I always dreamed about meeting. And I was actually coaching them throughout that internship. I also did an internship with LA Galaxy during the same time, since Exos had a partnership with them during that time. And it was just the perfect opportunity for me, and it opened the doors and made me meet who are my current mentors right now: Ben Ashworth and Kelly Starrett. Ben was a physical therapist from Arsenal first team, and opened the doors for me to go to Europe the next year and do a professional development trip, which again, it's all about, I didn't have enough money at all, but just being able to know that those opportunities will be really important for me, and trying to find a way to get there. And I had friends all over the world, and I just asked them to stay in their couch. So my second year of master's, in the summer, I spent 2 months just traveling around by myself and learning from all different coaches in Arsenal and FC Basel and Aston Villa, and just learning from the best there, and picking people's brains. And they were all really receptive and really eager to have me there as a young coach, trying to, learn and asking questions. So after that, after my master's, I needed to get a job to pay for bills. So I was applying everywhere, and I got a director of sports performance job in a youth athletic training facility in Michigan, Redline Athletics, which was a big step for me, especially with leadership, being the director and starting something from ground zero, because it was the first facility in Michigan. So we started from scratch, and being able to apply my methodology with them, and learning everything and making mistakes. And that was amazing. So that was 2017. Well, that was 2018, actually. I stayed there for a year and 5 months. At the same time, I was invited to be a U.S. Soccer Network sports scientist. So pretty much I was working per diem for U.S. youth national teams, traveling around camps and being the sports scientist from them. And that was another amazing opportunity that I was able to do while I was at Redline. And it was pretty much the best year professionally, that I was able to learn so much and keep, asking questions and stuff. And that's when, at the beginning of 2019, that's when I saw that Orlando was looking for a strength conditioning coach, and one of my mentors knew the coach and said, they're asking if I know somebody, and I put your name out there, and they told me to apply. A bunch of people told me to apply, so I applied and was able to get in, and I started right away. Drove all the way to Orlando and started my life here, which has been amazing experience. So long story, sorry, it was really long, but
No, it was an amazing story.
But it's just it's good a story to tell, young kids and the young coaches that, you can always be where you wanted to be. Like, if you have a dream, you have to work for it, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be stressful, and sometimes you're going to be by yourself, but at the end, I know things will always work out if you're willing to put all your effort there. And so it's been a great last, I would say, 4 or 5 years.
Coach, as I'm listening through your story, especially early on, the word that keeps popping in my mind is just adversity, and how throughout it just seemed like you kind of had some things stacked against you, or maybe things you kind of had to do in a more difficult way that others might not have had to. For the people out there who listen to this that might be going through that similar path where it just seems like, constantly there's something they're up against, what's a word of advice that you could lend out to those people that might be going through a similar situation?
I think it's always important, and I always tell this, it's important for you to know where you're at right now and where you want to be, or what's your long-term goal, and we that roadmap. And that's something that my mentor Ben always advised me to do, and just write down where you are right now, where you want to be, and what's your long-term goal, and what are the steps that you need to take to get to that level, to get to that goal. And again, the road is going to be full of different paths, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the way you're envisioning. Sometimes it's just, it's just things that you can't control is going to happen. They're going to happen. And like one thing that is happening is exactly that coronavirus, right? Like how one thing can definitely like stop the entire world. And you have to stop and think, like, as long you think that you have control of everything in your life, but you don't. So understanding that there is some curveballs, there's going to be challenges that you just have to deal with it. And I was always really optimistic about everything. So I was always really ambitious, and I'm always trying to find the good thing about things, and not focus too much on things that you can control, which it's easy to say, right? But just always keep that long-term goal, and then always keep striving to improve yourself as a person, as a coach, and all that kind of thing. And it's really important, and it's gonna be a hard road. It's, for me, like, especially now when things are going too well, I get into that kind of anxious mode that I'm like, this is going too well. Like, where is the challenge coming? Is it gonna come? Because I'm waiting for it. Because I'm just so used to kind of like, okay, there's a challenge. Okay, I'll go through it, but it's gonna be fine, because you work hard to do something, and people see the hard work. And I think a lot of people sometimes get frustrated because they're trying to get to that position, that high profile position, that professional position. And a lot of them forget that they have to be present in where they are right now. So that's something that when I was in Bowling Green State University as a master's student, that's one thing that I always kept in mind of, like, I'm not just trying to be at the professional level right now. I'm trying to be the best coach that I can be right now with those group of athletes. And that group of athletes, they literally shaped who I am today, and shaped to be the coach that I am today at the professional level. Without them, and without me really putting that effort in those early days, I wouldn't be here. So I think sometimes the big advice for me is, don't just focus on the outcome. You just have to focus on the process and be the best that you can be in that process, and challenge yourself, challenge others, ask questions. And I think that's how you should be doing, so you can be really successful and achieve what you want to achieve.
Coach, I appreciate you so much giving me your time this afternoon. If the people out there listening, if any of them wanted to keep up with you and some of the things you guys are doing down in Orlando, what would be the best way they can keep up with you guys, or maybe even reach out to you?
Yeah, so I post a lot of my stuff on Twitter. So I really like to share my stuff. I'm not one of those that keep it secret, but Twitter or Instagram, or even my email, ivik.casagrande@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out. I love to talk with other coaches, talk to young coaches, to young kids, and whatever I can help, I'll do that.
Daddy, I'm learning so much from this podcast.
I appreciate the time Coach Casagrande took in order to join me on the show, and I thought her story is a great testament to handling adversity. Let's review this lesson for success. In our conversation, Coach shared that along her journey, she encountered a great deal of adversity, from growing up and competing as boys to the long days of training. If you're listening and you're going through some tough moments, Coach shared that you need to keep your goals in mind. List out the steps that it's going to take to reach these goals. Understand that as you navigate through these steps, things are not going to go perfectly. Roadblocks will pop up when you least expect them. Be ready to handle the curveballs that life's going to throw at you. Coach felt that what gave her an advantage was focusing on the positives in every situation. Never stop striving to improve yourself as a person, and in the grand scheme of things, you're going to be all right in the end. That's it for this episode of the Lessons for Success podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to screenshot the episode and share it on social media. Before you close the app, be sure you subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to also tune into the daily episodes of the show, as well as some of the past interviews we've had with a variety of guests. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next time on the Lessons for Success Show podcast.